much indeed for the webinar CPD talk on leadership in uncertainty. I think the picture is quite revealing. So I'm going to probably ask Shamela on this particular picture as well. How do we navigate our way out through a water which is uncharted? Shamela is an NLP accredited master practitioner, managing director of Pan Sophia Associate. Okay, so next slide. So agenda today, quick housekeeping. I'll be doing an introduction for 10 minutes. We'll have a presentation of 40 minutes, but the presentation will be interactive. So this could be 40, this could be an hour, or could be 30 minutes, depending on how you feel. But obviously we will be engaging quite a lot today. There'll be lots of Q&A. I have received a lot of questions as well. And then we'll conclude and say thank you to everybody around, 11:15 or 15:15 or half-past as well. So quick housekeeping for those of you who are new. When sharing your screen, you will see when you look at your screen, you will see the view option on PC, which is right on top of your screen. So there you can obviously adjust your screen. Audio on PC is bottom left-hand side screen. You have the raise hand icon if we need it, just like you did. So if I'm going to ask you to obviously give a round of applause to Shamela, please put your hands up, and that's bottom of your screen. There's a Q&A tab, so you can put your question in anytime you want, and then we'll answer them as and when. And there's the leave meeting option on the right hand side of your PC. If you're watching on tablet, all the option is right on top. If you want to leave the meeting, not because you're bored of the seminar, but because you just had to go for a personal reason, you can just leave there as well. There'll be some surveys. We're going to start surveys as well, just to make it more interactive and what you think of as well. So thank you, Shamela, for being here, your time, effort, and I know it's early morning as well. So thank you very much indeed for being here today with us. There will be a certificate attendance which I will issue. Please email it to me at anil@cbdtalk.com. Just say, please, can I have a certificate? And I'll get your certificate straight away. A copy of slide. Shamela, are you okay to give a copy of your slide? Yeah. So Shamela will issue a copy of the slide as well. I will ask part of giving back to Mauritius. So who are them? Some of you know, some of you don't, but I'm just gonna quickly: love construction, love learning, love sharing, and love people as well. And I've been asked by my wife to say I love her too, so I love my wife. Just quickly, leadership is key. A friend sent that to me yesterday, and this was on BBC News, a website. And this gentleman goes on to say that I think it's obvious that we lack leadership. And this is coming from, WHO, who as well, the World Health Organization. So very important there to talk about leadership today. So there's a quote from leadership which I want to share with you, right? And this was in 2013. I have recently had to put together a series of talk on leadership as part of our continuing education program. I found mountain of materials on how to lead, technique for communicating effectively with team, method of managing, the habit of highly effective people, emotionally intelligent, and the usual stuff. While the research was a good exercise, it all became a bit noisy, which made me step back and reflect on my experience, both as a team member and as a leader. What really makes us a good leader? What are the key things a leader should be on guard against? So the conclusion I reached was that the biggest failures you can make are not about how you manage your team, they're about how you manage yourself. And that's really important. And you can see as a picture there of the project manager. And do not allow egocentricity to compromise your team vision. It's all about the team, it's not about you, it's all about the team and the world. And this was written by Clive Chandler, Director Project Manager, of McLaren Lister, part of international base in Sydney. So I want to do a quick survey before we introduce everybody. These are not Shamela's question. I'll have a few very interesting questions before we start, just to make it engaging. So I'm going to share the survey with you. The first survey will go up to 8, and I'm going to relaunch polling. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to launch a survey to everybody. And it's already there. Can you see it, Shamela? So we can't hear you, by the way.
I deliberately muted myself,
Okay.
Anil, for that bit.
Yeah. So do you think your leadership approach should be reviewed as of today, during and after a difficult time? So a lot of people are obviously sharing. So I'm going to share the result. Please, please, please keep voting. Very important. We've got, you know, almost 95 of you here today. And right, so I'm just going to stop polling and share the result. So Shamela, maybe something for our thought later on. 95% of the audience today says, you know, they think that leadership approach should be reviewed. I'm going to share another one before we obviously continue with the presentation. So stop result. Right, so that's a very good one. So the next one is, what approach leadership style would you take post-COVID as a stakeholder in the overall recovery? So what type of leadership style would you like after post-COVID-19? So please, please put your vote in. So again, it's very important to know about the different type of styles. So that would be directing, coaching, supporting, and delegating. Again, all useful tools in order to make you a better leader. So thank you very much indeed. There's already seven.
Anil, just to say that some people can't, well, Natalie is saying that she can't see the survey. So I don't know whether you can direct to where it's supposed to. It pops up in the middle of my screen, Natalie. So
yes, I don't know what's happening with Natalie, but everybody else I think can. Let me just,
okay.
we'll find out about the technical glitches shortly. So let me just share that result with you. And I share the result, and the result is here. So 86% is looking for supporting leaders, 11% directing, 29% coaching, and delegating is 18%. So I'm going to stop the result for now, and then we'll again something for discussion later. Okay, so I want to share a quick video before we get started with Shamela, and hopefully you can hear my sound and everything else. Yeah, we're all ready. Okay, off we go.
I felt alone, and worse, it was my fault. I wondered if I was just wrong, an imposter, a 22-year-old kid who had no idea how things actually worked. Now, years later, I understand that that is how things work when there's no sense of higher purpose. So it's up to all of us to create it so we can all keep moving forward together. One of my favorite stories is when JFK went to go visit the NASA Space Center, and he saw a janitor holding a broom, and he asked him what he was doing, and the janitor replied, "Mr. President, I'm helping put a man on the moon." Purpose is that feeling that you are a part of something bigger than yourself, that you are needed, and that you have something better ahead to work for. Purpose is what creates true happiness. J.K. Rowling got rejected 12 times before she finally wrote and published Harry Potter. Even Beyonce had to make hundreds of songs to get Halo. The greatest successes come from having the freedom to fail. Ideas don't come out fully formed. They only become clear as you work on them. You just have to get started.
Okay, so as you can see, there was also something I would like to share with you. What Mark Zuckerberg say is that the question I ask myself like almost every day is, am I doing the most important thing I could be doing? Very, very important. So massive thank you to Shamela. I'm going to introduce Shamela formally now for her time and for her effort and for wisdom as well from the UK. And I wrote this blog on construction, COVID-19 and collaboration. And then I shared that with Shamela on WhatsApp. And then this one was the response from Shamela. I shared that on the 24th of March, 2020, right? That was my blog. Many of you got it at the same time as Shamela did. And Shamela came up, and I didn't know about webinar or anything. And Shamela came and said, Anil, if you think a virtual coaching session would be useful for your network, let me know, stay safe. And then 5 weeks on, Shamila is here to help us out. And I said, yeah, hi Shamila, something we can think about. What do you have in mind? I'm not too sure. Maybe a group coaching or a coaching session on Zoom. And here we are today. So Shamila, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for being here. I can't thank you. So I'm gonna introduce Shamila quickly because obviously she has something to say as well on her side. So Shamila comes from a corporate background with over 25 years of experience as a management consultant for PwC, PA Consulting, and BT Syntegra in the UK, working in many diverse sectors at the most senior level with organizations. She started her own business in 2015, delivering bespoke leadership development to organizations and high-level coaching to senior executive. Like many practitioners in the space, Shamila is passionate about the development of individuals. She believes the secret to organization performing at the best is to ensure that people are able to bring all their strength to the workplace. She uses a positive psychology, strength-based approach and add in NLP, neuroscience, and mindfulness with her executive client to ensure maximum result. She has worked in many different industry sectors, ranging from the oil industry to health and social care. She has recently worked with the highest level of the UK's NHS. She's an experienced speaker and recently delivered a TEDx-style talk at the PwC alumni event that was live streamed globally. In her spare time, Shamila is the founder of Body Good, a global event that has raised over £23,000 for charities across the world, including Mauritius. Body Good has been shortlisted for the National Diversity Award, Community Organization Award. And finally, Shamila has work award for her work in the charity sector. Can you please put your little icon hand for Shamila as we welcome her on board? All right, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing now, Shamila. It's all yours. If you can upload your PowerPoint as we get started. No pressure, all yours.
Right, I'm just uploading my PowerPoint.
Yeah, no problem.
So if you bear with me.
Yeah, that's fine. Please keep sending your question, everybody, as we're going to take question as we go along. So Shamila will talk for 10 minutes. We'll pick up question. We'll make it interactive. And if some of you want to talk, just put a message, say, look, I want to talk to Shamila. We'll bring you on the screen as well, just to make it much more interactive and to share your experience, which is very important in this time of crisis right now. All right, Shamila, off you go. Thank you very much indeed for all your time today.
You're most welcome, and thank you, Anil, for for picking up on that little WhatsApp message and setting all of this up. I know Anil's already done 5 webinars, which is amazing. So hopefully this one will be as successful as all the others. And it will be as successful as you make it, really, because I really need your participation in this to make it as useful to everybody as possible. So we are in uncertain times. I'm going to just talk a little bit more about me, just so that you get a sense of who I am. So this is an old picture, so I look a little bit different now. But you get the point. I'm smiling happily. This is before being a mum and before the current uncertainty. So I do have lots of experience as a management consultant. One of the recent and most relevant experiences was working with the WHO in Geneva a few years ago during the Ebola crisis. And I learned a lot about the different kinds of leadership and what works and what doesn't work, particularly what doesn't work, when I was there. And I'll go into that a little bit more as we go through the presentation. But that wasn't, as I guess you will remember, that wasn't necessarily run very well. Very different type of virus, but I think the WHO learned a lot from that. And hopefully they're going to apply it during the crisis that we have now. So I'm also a mum of 1-year-old babies. This is them just after their first birthday. They're even bigger than that now. I just wanted to let you know about that because you might hear them behind me crying. So don't worry, their dad is with them and the cat is with them as well. So I'm sure between them, they'll be able to look after them well. I'm also a second-generation Mauritian. My parents are from Mauritius, and I have recently got my dual citizenship, so I can now say that I am a proud Mauritian as well as being a Londoner. So really, really proud about that. And I did a talk last year for Anil, and I think some of you may have come to that And that was really, really exciting, because that was the first time I've ever given back to Mauritius. And hopefully this will be the second time, and then maybe there'll be many more times when I can actually do some more work with Mauritians. Right, so the times we're in. So yeah, we're in a time when the whole world is completely, constrained by this tiny organism, this tiny virus. And these are some of the pictures that came to mind. I don't know whether you are feeling the same kind of love for health workers that we are in the UK. This is a picture from, I think it's actually from somewhere in Asia, for some of the health workers. This is a picture from Italy. People every week clapping, and we do the same in the UK. Every Thursday at 8 o'clock we clap for our essential workers. There's a lot of this going on in the UK, random thank yous. And this young man has become very famous. I don't know whether you guys have heard of him. He was 100 on Thursday, I believe. And he rose to fame because he wanted to raise £1,000 for the NHS. And he did that by doing some walking in his garden. That's his garden, by the way, which is quite a lovely garden. And in the end, he raised, I think, £30 million so far, and he's still walking. He wanted to do 100 laps of his garden by the time it was his 100th birthday. And I think he's done more than 200 now, and he just keeps going. So he's an example of a leader to me. And this brings me on to my first poll, Anil. Yes. So if Anil could bring up the poll question.
Yep.
It's just a light-hearted poll to start us off with. So okay, I'd just like to ask you, who's the best leader from this list that we have?
Okay, so I'm going to launch the poll now, everybody. So launch with the panelists as well. Can you see it on your screen, Shamela?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, so who out of this list is the best leader in your opinion? Jacinda Ardern, Captain Tom, Boris Johnson, Angela Merkel, and Donald Trump. We have 100 plus in the audience today. So who out of this list is the best leader in your opinion? So again, I would like your honest opinion and your thoughts as well on who do you think is the best leader. We'll give you 20 more seconds. We are at 40 seconds as you're voting, and only 50% of you have voted. So again, who out of this list is the best leader in your opinion? Jacinda Ardern, is it Ardern? Captain Tom, Boris Johnson, Angela Merkel, and Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Now, Captain Tom is our young man in the picture here.
Okay, Captain Tom is there, the 100 years old Captain Tom. Okay, so we're going to stop the polling. It's just 1 minute and poll. And we're going to share the result now. Share result. So the result is here. Jacinda is 23%. Captain Tom, 27%. Boris Johnson, 21%. Angela Merkel, wow. Obviously, probably because of her longevity, at 37%. And Donald Trump at a mere 5%. So all yours. I'm going to stop sharing. And so 23%. So the one which come out most is Angela. Okay, what's your thought on that? Do you wanna? Can you? You can talk as you can see the screen.
Yeah, I mean, I think Angela Merkel is amazing. So in the current crisis, Germany and New Zealand. So Jacinda Ardern is a big favourite of mine as well. She's also the first leader that has dealt with a terrorist attack, a volcano exploding, and COVID-19, all while holding her baby. So, you know, she's a mum. She gave birth in her first term, and all of these things happened in her first term. And the New Zealanders love her. I know quite a few New Zealanders. I don't know whether we've got any New Zealanders on the webinar today. I know we've got at least one Australian, but she's pretty amazing, and she leads with compassion, and we'll come on to that in a bit. And Angela Merkel is a scientist by background, and I think it shows in her response to COVID-19. Captain Tom is just a lovely old man, but what he has done for us as a nation in the UK, he's led the nation in thinking about others, which is incredibly important, which Anil mentioned at the beginning. Good old Boris. Well, I can't really comment on that because it wouldn't be fair, because I'm quite biased against Boris in general, so I'm not going to comment about that. Suffice to say that he's the only leader in the world that's actually had COVID-19. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'll leave that to you to have a think about. And then I'm not really going to say anything about Donald Trump. I just put him in there because I wondered whether anyone really thought he was great, but there are 5% that do, so good for you. So we're going to move on really quickly.
And
I thought that was
just a quick one on that. Why do you think the audience today has voted for Angela Merkel? Is that because of her longevity for being here for years and years and years with us?
I think it's partly that, but we'd have to ask them. But in my opinion, I'll give you my opinion why I think she would definitely be somebody that would come up top for me. I think it's her methodical approach. I think for everything. I think she is. She's got great experience, but she's also comes from a background of using her experts, being able to assess the data and the information that's in front of her. She's very compassionate. She leads with her heart. So I think she's got a good balance of everything. Wow. So she is for me, she's one of the best leaders in the world, I have to say. She's an amazing woman.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to stop sharing and then it's back to you again.
Wonderful. So let's get into what we're going to be doing today. Oh, for some reason I can't move. Aha, there we go. Yeah. So this is what we'll cover. First of all, we'll look at you as your role as a leader. Then we'll look at how do you communicate with others around you, because essentially that's your job as a leader. Then we'll do another kind of another look at you and how you personally can make the most of this time. And then we'll look at how do you use this time innovatively, particularly now because we're in, like Anil said with that very first slide, we're in uncharted waters, and the world needs all of us to step up right now. And I've got question and answers there at the end, but as Anil said, if we could have them as we go through, that will be great. Okay, so let's get into it. So how do we lead? So I've got another poll question here. So I'm going to pass over to Anil again. Can you bring up the question that says, when we have to deal with a big crisis, where should we start focusing first?
Okay, so the second question is live to all the audience now, and it's about when we have to deal with a big crisis, where should a leader start focusing first? I mean, many of you are here leaders, you're leaders in your own field, most of you are in the construction industry, I know, and it's about the wider system, the organization, the peers, the team, the role, or the self. So again, please keep voting. We've got 30 seconds to go. When we have to deal with a bigger crisis or a big crisis, where should a leader start focusing first? On the wider system, on the organization, on the peers, on the team, or on the role, or on the self? So again, please keep voting. We've got 10 seconds left before we end polling. So pressure's on.
Very exciting, this.
Yes, very exciting. And
it's almost like Eurovision. I don't know whether you ever get to watch Eurovision over there, but when you get all the votes in for Eurovision.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we're going to stop polling and I'm going to share the result with you. So share result. I'm just going to bring it here.
Interesting.
Okay, so when we have to deal with a big crisis, where should a leader? So 18% say wider system, 15% say organization, 1% doesn't care about the peers. 39% is about team, and the role and about the role is 7%, and self is 20%. Again, please, everybody can see the poll as we talk. Please share your views as well on that, Shamela.
Right. Well, that will bring me into if I go into the slides. Anil, can I get rid of the poll?
Yeah, I'll get rid of the poll. Here we go.
Thank you. So we actually, it was a loaded question. We actually have to start with the self first. Whatever the situation is, we always have to check in with ourselves first. It's really, really, really important. And again, Anil, whenever Anil does this with me, he always picks up on the key messages, and even before I've written the slides. So if you saw his quote earlier, that was about checking in with yourself first as a leader. It's so important. And then, you know, it comes out that way. So team is obviously really important, understanding who and what your team are, what do they need, etc., etc. The key is really understand who you are first, and then you can connect outwards towards the system and the world in this case. So that's where we're going to start today. We're really going to get to know ourselves first, and we're going to move forward into how do we interact with others. And the key elements of the self there are around trust, our own trust, actually, our trust in ourselves and who we are as leaders, understanding our strengths, and then ensuring that we're accountable to everybody around us. In order to be accountable, you have to trust yourself. And so that's what we're going to look at today. Right, so I've got another poll. I got really excited about these polls yesterday.
Yes.
So this is also a loaded one. So I'm going to explain the ideas behind this. But Anil, if you could put up the next poll, which is, what should we lead with? Head, heart, or gut?
Excellent. So that's on now, and we are looking at the screen. Again, these polls are important to really kick off the conversation. Which should you lead with? And I've just put on the title, leadership and intuition. Is that with your head, your heart, or your gut? Which should you lead with? I think that's a really poignant question, Shamela. Which should you lead with? Your head, your heart, or your gut? So again, please, you've got 30 seconds.
And one of the things that I need to explain about this is that this is, when we do talk about this in a minute, this is now scientifically proved that we do lead with our head, hearts, and guts, and the way that we use them is incredibly important. So neuroscientists have realized that we have neurons in we obviously have them in our head. We have billions and billions in our head, but we have hundreds of thousands in our guts and hundreds of millions in our heart. So we do have what we would call a brain in our heads and our hearts and our guts. Wow, okay, this is really good. I'm liking a nice even spread. So 34% say gut, 38 say heart, and 53 say head. Okay, that's really interesting, and I'll explain why as we get into the material. Okay, so here we are. We've got a heart, a head, and a gut. So the neuroscience says, like I said, we have neurons in our hearts, in our guts, and in our heads. Now, what the science tells us is that the heart, so I'm going to stand up here, the heart is responsible for all of our likes, our dislikes, our ability to connect to others, and our ability to disconnect to others. So it's incredibly important. Our heads is obviously where all of our information is stored, and our heads take in so much information that we are completely unaware of the billions and billions and billions of data sets that are in our heads. So our head's purpose, so the brains in our heads, the purpose in our brain for our brain is to filter through the information and work out what we actually need. And then our gut also has a lot of information in it, and it is responsible for our needs. So what we need, what we think we need, if you like, and it is also responsible for our identity. So this is where our identity sits, which is really strange. It sounds such a strange thing to say, but actually, if you think about it, when we were growing in the uterus, the first thing that grows is the spinal cord, and then the second thing that grows is the gut, and that's how we become human. So the gut works out what is food and brings it into all of the different cells to grow, and also works out what is not food and expels that. So it creates our identity. So it says this is self, this is not self. So it's also responsible for fear. So when you have a funny feeling in your gut, when you're worried about something, that's your gut actually telling you that there's something not good out there, that's not right. When you've got a really good feeling in your gut, that's telling you that it's definitely something for you, that it's self. So the science tells us that the most effective way of using these three neural pathways, or three brains that we have, is to actually lead with the heart first, compassion first, which is why I've got it in this order. Start with compassion and connecting with others. Then your brain is able to look at all the options around you. Your head brain is able to see all of the different data sets, all of the information, and connect that perfectly to what you really want and what you really love and what you're connected to, and that compassionate view of the world. And then your gut has the courage to say, okay, guys, let's do it. Okay. So I'm wondering whether there is anybody that might like to talk about that piece of science. It's called multiple braining, by the way. So is there anyone that's interested in having a quick chat about it? And
I think that's really, really eye-opener, what you just showed us there, Shamela. Anybody who want to talk, maybe? Can you put your hands up? Anybody who would like to feel to talk? I can't see any hands up. Let's just see. Anybody? Nope. I think nobody want to talk to Shamela. They're all afraid of anybody. Okay, so nobody want to talk.
Okay. Oh, that's a shame. Well, maybe you will later. Maybe you will later. Okay. So with all of that right
one
now.
sec. We've got one. We've got one. Natalie want to talk. So let's bring Natalie in and see if she can talk, because Natalie wanted to talk initially. And I'm just going to bring Natalie in as a panelist. Just taking time to do the transition. Natalie, can you hear us? Davison, can you hear me? Shamela, can you hear me? Yeah.
I can, yes.
All right, Natalie, we can't hear you. No, we can't hear you. For some reason, we can't hear Natalie. So we'll just continue. She has problem with her mic. So yeah, let's continue.
Okay,
Shamela.
so it's a shame that we can't hear Natalie, because I know that she was talking about food and diet earlier, just as everyone was logging on. So, and this brings me to self-care. So self-care is incredibly important right now. As
Shamela, just a quick one. Someone has put a question in live from Akshata. Yeah, does the mind?
I can't actually see the questions, Anil, so you're going to have to read it out to me.
Go on the Q&A. Can you see the Q&A bit?
Yeah, but it's not popping up because I've got shared screen, so I'm going to have to stop the share.
So does the mind has a preponderance over the heart? Does the mind has a preponderance over the heart in terms of decision making?
This is a scary thing. So we often think that we're thinking with our heads, and we're making a really important decision with our heads, but often our decisions come from the heart and gut. And if we're not properly connected to our hearts and guts, they can scupper us, you know, so they can undermine our decision making. So what we need to be careful of is, if we're not aligned, and I'll explain how you align yourself to them to make sure that you know you're going in the right direction. Then, so say I don't know, let's give an example. Say that you've decided that you want to go for a new job. But you haven't really checked in with whether, you know, on paper it looks great, but you haven't really checked in with whether you'd really love to do it. And there's a part of your heart that just isn't aligned. There's something that you just don't like about it, or even one of the people that interviewed you perhaps. And if your gut is feeling really anxious and not happy about it, what you might end up doing is in your first few weeks scuppering yourself by doing lots of gaffes, you know, or we've all been in a situation when we think, why did I do that? I don't understand why I said that. I don't understand why I did that. I don't understand why I'm feeling so sick all the time. And that's because there's no alignment between the three areas. So in order to get alignment, the key thing is to start really understanding what's going on for you. And all of this kind of scuppering and undermining all happens. So the thing about the head brain it is the only neural pathway that has a conscious part to it. So obviously you can hear your thoughts. You can't hear your heart telling you what to do, and you can't necessarily hear your gut telling you what to do. Though sometimes when I'm hungry, my gut is very, very loud. So the key thing is to understand what's going on unconsciously. Now, what the scientists have found is that your heart and your gut give messages to your brain all the time. They tell your brain what to do all the time, and they also control a lot of your hormone responses. So this is another reason why we really need to make sure they're aligned. And really simply, it's so simple to align them. Every day you need to just listen to your heart and your gut. So a simple way of doing that is, and we're going to practice some breathing techniques later, is to just put your hand on your heart when you have a decision to make. Breathe deeply, be relaxed, and just ask the question, heart, what do you want? And you don't have to do that out loud because people might think you're crazy. But what do you want? And the answer will come to you in your head, obviously. And the gut is the same thing. You ask your gut, what do you need? Slightly different questioning, because it's a slightly different part of the brain. And the questioning, you know, if we had 2 hours to go into this particular technique, I would spend some time explaining why you need to use the different words in a different way. But the key thing is, heart is what do you want? Gut is what do you need? And head is what are my options?
Okay, so thank you for clarifying this, Shamela. I've got one more question before we move on to your presentation. I think it's best we take the question as we go along, because it's difficult to bring participants on the platform. So the very important question for all of us here from a colleague from, does one think differently during crisis time compared to normal time? So do you think differently during a crisis time as opposed to a normal time? Thank you for this question.
Yes, it's a really important and useful question. So yes, we do, if we are governed by fear. So this is the key thing. If we let our fear and our anxiety get ahead of us, we will make very disconnected and decisions, and they will be decisions based on self-preservation rather than what's best for everybody. So I will give you an example. Obviously, you guys are in confinement, and you have been in confinement from, I think, when you only had about 3 cases in Mauritius. So so you did it really early. In the UK, we didn't. And when we call it lockdown over here. So when we first introduced lockdown, lots of people ignored it. And there was lots of reports of really selfish behaviour. And the reason for that was people were suddenly scared, because we had had a situation where we thought everything was going to be okay, and then suddenly, literally within 12 hours, we had full lockdown. And the behavioral scientists realized that what they needed to do was to give a bit more support to people, because you can't just lock them down like that really quickly and expect them to make sensible decisions. There needs to be a bit of understanding. You need to get people to understand why you need to lock down. So the heart is really important. So the messaging in the UK was all about, in order to help the health workers do their job, we need to all stay at home, and we need to care for our health workers by staying at home. So it was really heart driven. Then the head realizes, okay, this is a sensible thing to do. And then the gut goes, okay, what kind of interesting things can I do that's about, you know, courage and brave? What brave things can I do while I'm at home? Like, you know, some people have shaved their hair. That's quite brave.
Okay.
But they've shifted their decision making because they have been driven to be more compassionate. So in a crisis like this, it's very, very easy to get driven off track and to go down the fear route. What we need to be as leaders is totally focused on compassion. It's got to be the way that we go.
Okay, just one more question, because there's lots of questions coming on, but I'll take one more interesting question from a colleague. How do we develop our gut feeling? As our head develop with our knowledge and experience, what about the gut? So how do we develop the gut feeling, or is that just something that just comes up?
Another good question. So what we need to do is develop gut health. So one of the things that we need to do is to make sure that you're giving your gut the right kinds of food. It's really,
so
really important.
Did you say gut health?
Health, yes.
Okay.
So
excellent.
you really need to eat the right kinds of food. So you need to make sure that you're eating enough good bacteria. So gut health and developing of the gut intuition is all about eating the right food. Good gut bacteria. So you know, my family come from an Indian background, and we eat a lot of yogurt, a live yogurt. So anything with good bacteria, anything that's fermented, things like kefir. I don't know whether you guys get kefir over there, but we do over here, because we have a lot of Russians and Eastern Europeans that make it. Sauerkraut, that kind of thing. Anything that will give us good bacteria to replenish, because many of us have had antibiotics over the years, and antibiotics actually diminish our gut responses, positive gut responses. The other thing you can do to develop your gut intuition is to listen to your gut. So when you're so it used to happen to me a lot when I was in meetings, when I was in the big companies, when I was at PwC particularly, and I'll give you an example. When I was working at the WHO, there was one particular daily meeting that was pretty horrendous. It was the death count. And we would sit in a big room and we would count the deaths of Ebola victims.
Wow.
And my gut would go crazy. I would feel physically ill by the end of the meeting. And at that time, I didn't really understand why. I just felt that everything was wrong. I was trying to do my job, which was about helping the leaders, but I didn't feel like the leaders were doing what they should be doing, and they certainly weren't listening to the right people, and my gut was going mad. Now, many years later, if I was in that meeting right now, I would be checking in with my intuition and basically sitting there and saying, okay, gut, what are you trying to tell me? What's going on? And I would have realized that what I needed to do was to be honest about how I felt and go to the leaders and say, look, you are not handling this, from my perspective, from what I can see, is you're not handling this situation really well, at all well. You have doctors on the ground that are telling you that your approach is flawed. Please listen to your doctors, and please can we focus on what the doctors are saying rather than your epidemiologists who are really just looking. So that's what I would have said back then if I'd developed my gut feelings appropriately. So just to repeat that. So there are two things that you can do to develop your gut. First thing is to make sure that you are giving it good bacteria. Second thing that you can do is to check in when you have a funny feeling in your gut, good or bad. Check in and ask yourself, what are you trying to tell me, and what do you need me to do? And you will get the answers.
Yes, fantastic.
Okay. Did that
Yeah.
Can I move on, do you think?
Yes,
Anil?
please. Yeah, there's plenty of questions, but we will take it at the end. So please move on. I think it's been made clear to us in terms of, the gut health. I've put it on the messages as well, having the good bacteria and checking as well. So thank you very much indeed. Please proceed. There's lots of questions coming in and lots of messages to say thank you for, sharing this with us in terms of gut, head, and heart. Thank you. Please proceed.
Great. So there's another aspect to this. So this is all about you, right? This section of the presentation. So there's something else about you that you need to really connect with right now. And we're in an ideal time because most of you will have a little bit more time in your day. And so what I'd like you to do is to start knowing yourself and your own story properly. Really understand where you're from, who you're from. So I often talk about my Mauritian ancestry, but I also go back all the way to the people that came to Mauritius from India. And we now, in my family, we now have traced back the original Kailasam, which is quite exciting, from one of the boats who came over as an indentured worker over to Mauritius. And that's really important for me to know, because I came from a group of people that were hardworking and quite brave. In my family history, there have been people that have got on boats to go to countries that they've never heard of. Some of who had to, but they still did it. They didn't shy away. They didn't run away. They got on that boat. Others have flown, got on aeroplanes, not knowing whether they'd ever come back to their beloved island to come to the UK. And they have faced a lot of difficulties, and they've worked really hard. And that's part of my DNA, and that's part of who I am. I'm also somebody that has made many, many mistakes. And Mark Zuckerberg talks about that in that little video that we saw earlier. And I'm a sum of all of these things. I'm a sum of all of my failures. I'm a sum of all of my successes. And I'm a sum of all of the experiences that I've had and all of the experiences that my ancestors have had. And that's really important to know. So if I am this complicated and I have all of these things going on, everybody else in the world must be just as complicated and have all of those things going on. So if I can really give myself that understanding, then I will be better able to understand others. So knowing yourself and your story is incredibly important, because it will give you an access to knowing others.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you much.
So the next thing is being okay with your own vulnerability. Now, I don't know whether you guys use a lot of social media. There's a lot of stuff going on Twitter and Facebook right now about, use this time really well and write a novel, or, learn a new skill, a new language, or become a singer-songwriter or whatever. And if you don't learn a new skill, or if you're not like Isaac Newton, who discovered gravity, then you're wasting your time. I would suggest that they are all being a little bit over the top. It's okay to be scared right now. I know I've said that we need to be careful of our guts and not to be run by fear, but in order not to be run by fear, we need to be okay that we're scared. We need to get that this is a scary time. People are dying around the world. People are putting their lives at risk to save those that are dying. We don't know what's going to happen, and collectively, it's a scary time, and that is okay. If we weren't scared, we wouldn't be human. So being okay with that fear and accepting that it's there right now, and understanding that it's normal, is a good thing. And being able to say to people that you are working with and your teams that you're also feeling it. You're also feeling a bit sad or disconnected right now, that it's hard for you as well as for them. That makes you human, and they're more able to connect with you.
Yeah.
So please be okay with your vulnerability.
I think what you just mentioned there as well, it's okay to be scared. I think not many people say this to us, Shamela, especially when we're watching Facebook or anything, or LinkedIn. It's about the invincible, it's about the heroes and the leadership, but nobody says about it's okay to be scared, and we are scared, you know. So thank you very much indeed. Your slide, if you're moving your slide, just to let you know, your slide is still on. How are you right now? Yeah.
Yes, it is. There's still one more.
Yeah.
I think. So this is the next thing. So we'll talk about this all the way through. I'd like you to start letting uncertainty be your friend. I know that sounds strange, but the thing about uncertainty is that it's the humans have created this thing about certainty, right? We've created a concept of time across the world. We live by this concept that we have created, and we have created certainty and uncertainty. It's okay, it's just a concept. So being uncertain is not something that that we need to be freaked out by. We can allow it to just be a friend that's on a journey with us. And I say that, and I use those words really purposefully. Think of uncertainty as a friend that you're getting to know. Treat it as something that you're learning to cope with, rather than something you're scared of. And things will start to shift for you very slowly. I'm just wondering if there are any other questions that
yes, we have plenty of questions coming
up
in
that are pertinent.
Yes. Let me just ask you, let me just share with you the other question. Just to clarify to the audience, right? When you talk about, I just want to just get back to one of the earlier discussion we had. What is meant by good bacteria? I'm talking about healthy diet.
Yes.
Yes.
So good bacteria are probiotics and prebiotics. So if you look those up, so they're basically things like the bacteria that you find in yogurt and cultures like that, or in fermented food, things like pickles, or what else has great bacteria in it? So there are drinks like kefir or kombucha. Kombucha is a Korean fermented fruit drink. So it's the kinds of things that you find that are in fermented fruit drinks that don't have alcohol in. So just before they turn to alcohol. But you can buy all of these things quite easily these days. But the easiest one is yogurt. You know, good live yogurt. So yogurt that you make at home, or good live yogurt that you can buy from the supermarkets. I know you guys get to go to the supermarkets twice a week. Yeah. So that kind of thing. And being aware of taking antibiotics. So only take antibiotics when you need to, because they kill the bacteria. So you need to balance that out by having good bacteria.
Excellent, thank you. Just quick one on the question. This is a strong question, but I'm going to share that with you. Is the guts the same thing as your soul, your being?
Oh my gosh, I don't really know is the answer to that. So I'm a Hindu. I practice meditation. I study and have helped others study the Vedas. So I have a very strong sense of what a soul is for me. I think the soul is bigger than the three things that are in our bodies: the head, the heart, and the gut. I think it's probably, the soul is probably a combination of these things, but it's probably bigger. So I think if you listen to your heart, gut, and head, you'll be closer to listening to your soul. So I'm hoping that answers you.
Yes, and
they're probably not as big as your soul.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. And this could be a session on its own as well. We can take that.
It could be.
a deferred workshop. Just quick one. Do you know, this question coming from candidate, do you have any books that we can look into and delve into?
Yeah, so I'll send, when I send the slides through to Anil, I'll send you one of the books around multiple braining.
Okay, and I'll take one more question. As this is coming from a fresh, young engineers in the industry, as someone who has just joined the workforce after university, how can I help my team leader during times of crisis? How can I contribute as a engineer, as a fresh engineer? How can I help my team leader during time of crisis? They want to contribute. So what advice would you give to the young professional?
I would say offer your help. I'd say treat your see your team leader as another human being just like you. Go with your, I mean, you sound really brave and courageous, so go with that brave, courageous feeling and say, how can I help?
Okay, thank you. And then I'll take another question before we move on. How do I take on-spot decision? How do I take on-spot decision? By aligning the heart, the mind, and the gut, so I do not regret it later.
So a really simple technique. Take a few seconds, only takes a few seconds, to take a few breaths. And the way you do this is that you breathe in for 4 seconds and breathe out for 4 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4 in, 1, 2, 3, 4 out. Do that 2 or 3 times. Put your hand on your heart and your hand on your gut. Ask your hand on your heart, what do I want? Allow the answer to come. Put your hand on your head. Ask your head, what options do I have? And then ask your gut, what do I need? So, I mean, it takes a minute, if that, and you'll get the answers.
And many a time as well, Shamela, we don't do that, what you've just shown us. We just react to it. It's a reactive situation where we don't do what you've just done. We just go for it. We react.
I would say that that's all the best leaders take a few minutes to have a think, even in the biggest crises. There are reports of people in battle. I know we're not in battle now, but the good leaders in battle would take a few breaths before they make the next decision. And in the Mahabharata, there are lots of instances of the Pandavas taking breaths before they make the next decision. So breathing in and out and checking in with yourself is incredibly important, and it can really help. The other thing to say about on-the-spot decisions is that there are very few decisions that can't be undone as well. So if you do make a decision that you regret, it's okay. You've learnt from it. Okay.
Do you want to take one more question, or you want to proceed with your slides?
I think we'll move on because I'm conscious of time.
Yes.
Let's move on. Okay, so we had another poll here. So can we stick that poll up? What style of leadership works in a crisis?
Here we go. So I'm just going to show you the style, leadership style in progress. You've got 60 seconds to answer. What style of leadership work in a crisis? Autocratic, authoritative, charismatic, democratic, or servant leader? So what style of leadership work in a crisis? Autocratic, authoritative, charismatic, democratic, or servant leader? Please, please, please put your percentage in. We've got only 40% who's voted. And please, please, please put your questions in. 70% of you are voting. It's going really quick now. What style of leadership work? You've got 20 seconds left. What style of leadership work in a crisis? Autocratic, authoritative, charismatic, democratic, or servant leader? So we've got 90% who just voted, 85% of you just voted. So I'm just going to end polling and I'm going to share the result. So I'm going to share the result with you. So as you can see is
Interesting.
60% autocratic, 28% authoritative, 36% charismatic, 43% democratic, and 23% servant leader. Any views on that before we move on?
I think it's really interesting. I would say I would say that we probably need all of them.
Wow.
At different, because we can be all of those things as a leader. And I think the key is to be flexible, but with one as your kind of your lead style. And I'm going to talk about that now with the next slide, if that's okay.
Yep.
Possibly not so much autocratic. I put that one in as a kind of a, just to see who's autocratic amongst you. So I now know. Right. So these are the kinds of things that I'd like you to think about. So we've got a lovely quote from Gandhi here. And then also another lovely quote from Dr. King. And I would say that being a servant leader in a crisis like this is incredibly important. So if we go back to that very first poll around who were the best leaders, and Anil was saying, why do I think Angela Merkel got so many votes? My personal opinion is why I think she was a good leader and why I would have voted for her, and or Jacinda Ardern, is that they are governed by what's important for everybody else. There are some leaders in the world that are only thinking about what's important for their upcoming elections, or what's important for their own, how do they stay as leaders, basically, for their own popularity. And there are some that are just thinking about, how do I stay alive? How do I look after my family? Which is probably less negative, but it's still not thinking about others. So right now, servant leadership is incredibly powerful. Finding your style of leadership in the service of others is incredibly important.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So I'm just wondering, Anil, you said that we can't get any more hosts up. We can't do any more. We won't be able to get anyone to have a discussion about that. I was wondering whether there was anyone interested in talking about that.
Anybody would like to talk by any chance? If you are okay to talk, if you just put your hands up. No pressure. If you want to share your views, you're allowed to talk. If not, then we'll just continue. We've got about half an hour to conclude. So there's someone raising their hand. Natalie's back again. So we'll try to get Natalie's view quickly, if she can talk this time. We've got a few questions as well coming through. So let me see if I can get Natalie as a panelist. And let's see if she can talk as well. Very interesting so far. I'm getting lots of feedback. We've got a half an hour to go. So let's just see if Natalie, while we're waiting for Natalie, I've got a question for you. What are your advice of how to use fear to become more stronger? So how can we make fear, use it as a tool to become more stronger?
Okay, so I would say I would connect in with it. So I would work out what's the thing that's making you anxious? Where's the fear coming from? What are you afraid of? And look at it. You know, am I afraid of whatever it is? Am I afraid of losing face? Am I afraid of not doing the right thing? What is it? And then saying to yourself, what is the worst that could happen? So right now, I'll share something with you. My partner, Gus, who's in the other room with the babies, he is an essential worker. So he's going out every day out of the house to work on buildings. He's a plumber. And he's working on government buildings and places like post offices and supermarkets to keep them up and running during the crisis. And if we're really honest, we're really worried and fearful about whether he's going to get the virus. So he and I have had this conversation a lot. And we have said, what is the worst that could happen? And the worst that could happen for us is that, you know, the really worst thing that could happen is that he gets ill and, well, and the worst happens. And we've dealt with that. We've talked that through. And it's still scary, but it's made us both stronger. Right, okay, so we know what the worst is going to happen. We know how we're going to deal with it. And what choice do we have? We don't have a choice. We have to keep moving forward. So that's the way to make fear your friend, and make yourself stronger with it.
Wow. Okay, just quick one. We've got Natalie here. Natalie, can you hear us?
Yes, do you hear me?
Yes, yes, we
Yes,
can hear
yeah,
you.
that's it.
Wonderful.
Finally.
I've also been able to view the survey. So I'm a trainer and a consultant in Mauritius, and I'm in hospitality. So my business is dead. I'm not going to get work until June 2021.
Mhm.
That's the easiest way. So, and the clients that I had contacted me, big groups in Mauritius. When the confinement started, they told me, you know, we are going to suspend payment. So what they owed me from January, I'm not going to see anytime soon. So I've worked and I'm not getting paid. So I thought, like, how can I be of service even if I'm not getting paid? And I'm a trainer, and I stuck up my mission as sharing and growing with others and to be of service with others. So I've decided to give training 3 times a week to those interested on different topics.
Mhm.
And I started with mission and vision to lead others to think, how can you be of service? And it was very interesting because everybody in hotels are so stressed about what's going to happen to them.
Mhm.
Particularly, I'm dealing with a hotel with 900 employees.
Yeah.
To get these people in is going to be a major mission based on government requirements, head office requirements, etc. So I asked them, how can you be of service? And as I said, I'm not I'm not getting paid or anything. So I gave his training, and I started with mission and vision in the times of crisis. And when I asked them, we thought, let's do a video of how we can start work back. And so we got someone doing the video, etc. And we developed a movie on what we should be doing based on the procedures of the hotel. Today we got the first video. We are a group, and we also did themes on what we can talk about. There's peace, there's love, there's time management, there's culture, book reading, and also other things like uncertainty,
Okay,
etc.
Nathalie, just a quick one. Obviously,
Yeah.
massive thank you very much indeed for the great work you're doing. But what is your question to Shamela? Do you have anything you want to get out of Shamela today?
No, today I wanted to participate and see later also how I can be of service to this group, maybe.
Fantastic. I think this is really
Well,
good what you just
that's an
said.
amazing example of leadership. So I just wanted to say thank you, Nathalie. That's a great example of how putting service first can create something amazing. So thank you, really.
And Shamela, what
It
Nathalie...
gives you a sense of purpose. It gives you a sense of purpose when you are in uncertainty.
Yeah.
Because I could
Okay.
just sit and watch Netflix and play puzzles, but then we all have something to do.
But what you said, Nathalie, what you said, I think I would like Shamela to touch on. What you just said was mission and vision. So
Yes.
I think, thank you, Nathalie. So we'll get you back to that attendee. Thank you very much indeed for your input.
Thank
Shamela,
you, Anil.
thank you. Shamela, what's your view on mission and vision? Because I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, it is really important, and I'm going to come on to that. So Anil, I'm going to, in the next couple of slides, I'm going to come on to mission and vision.
Okay.
So I'm going to move on quickly now to communicating with others. Okay, so the first thing that that I think we need to do when we're communicating with others is to be present. Now, I'm hoping you all understand what I mean by that. So I've got a lovely graphic there that is trying to show you what I mean. So really know who you are right now in this moment. So for example, in order to prep for today, I did a few minutes meditation so that I was totally present to you. I wasn't focused on the babies. I wasn't focused on you know, what I have to do today after I finished this webinar. I was totally focused for you. And in order, when you're talking to people during a crisis, it's so important to be focused on them, really focused on them. So the kinds of things that I'd like you to think about is whatever tools you have as an individual to be present. I'd like you to practice them more now. So we've got another poll. I think it's the last poll. and it's quite an important poll. So Anil, if you can bring this up. So it says, what do you use as a tool to stay present? So this is, you know, this is the thing that you do on a regular basis every day. So if you could tell us what you do. Now, I think Anil, you've added the reading one on there, haven't you?
This one is to do with the leadership and relaxation. So the question is,
yes,
obviously, what tool do you use to obviously be at present? You've got yoga, sport, music, meditation, art, nature, gardening, and reading. So again, please put your 50% of you have voted. What tool do you use to stay present? And yes, so the percentage are coming in as we go through. And okay, so I'll give you 2 more seconds, and then with 85% have voted. So I'm just going to end polling, and I'm going to share the result. So here we go. So
really
leadership, right? So yoga 14%, sport 55%. That doesn't mean you're watching football, by the way. It's actually doing the sport. Music is 48%. Meditation is 28%. Art is 7%. Nature 25%. Gardening 21%, and reading a whopping 40%. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, my one thought about reading is, while reading is great for relaxation, it's not necessarily very good for being present. And I'll explain that. Reading is great because it informs your head. So you're bringing in new ideas. It's great to do before you do something to stay present. So do some reading and then do one of these other things. So go for a walk after you've been reading. Get out in the garden, sit in nature, listen to some music, because reading uses the part of your brain that is assimilating information, and all these other things are the things that are connecting the information in your head, and they're passive. They're passive for your cognitive brain. So they're allowing your cognitive brain to be passive and allowing you to be centered on the rest of you. I hope that makes sense. So it's really important to have a daily practice of something like yoga, sports, music, meditation, art, nature, gardening. Cooking is another one. Knitting is another one. We do lots of knitting in the UK because it's cold. Those kinds of things that don't engage your brain. Playing with children is a wonderful one. Playing with pets, taking dogs for a walk is a great one. So it's really, really important. So if you can get rid of the poll for me, please, Anil.
Shamela, just quick one. Why is yoga so little in terms of 14%? Because there's yoga everywhere, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on the news, and people say, keep doing yoga. But why is it so little? Because I'm not into yoga myself, but I need to be in. And meditation is 28%. So there's so much thing going on about, do meditation, do yoga, yet it's really little there. Why?
Well, I suspect it's because it looks really hard, doesn't it? When you watch somebody who's got a perfect body doing yoga, it can put you off. But I don't think I've ever told you this, Anil. I used to teach yoga many years ago.
Wow. Okay.
And even just touching your toes is a little bit of yoga. So you can start yoga really easily now. It's a good time to start. So I would encourage you all to do a little bit of yoga, even if it's for 5 minutes. Just do a little bit of stretching, touching your toes. You don't have to do a formal style. But stretching is, again, neuroscience has realized that stretching is really good for your brain. In fact, dancing has been proven to be incredibly good for your brain, and it makes you more agile in your thinking, because dancing connects music as well as movement. And so we should have had that on the list as well.
And just finally, to
have a little Sega dance every day. Put some Sega on. Absolutely. And do a little bit of Sega dancing every day.
Yes, we do have problem we do have complaint from neighbors when we put Sega in lockdown, but let's move on quickly. Stop share result.
Yes, if we could move on. So this is really important. So somebody said earlier in one of the questions, you know, in today's crisis, how can that affect our decision making? So this is the key thing. When we're stressed, our reaction can be to speed up and do things too quickly, make decisions too quickly. Actually, if you slow down and you bring some space, like I said, you bring some breathing to it, you say to people, I need to take some time, I'm going to go away and think about it for 5 minutes, half an hour, and then I'll make the decision. This is really, really, really important. Having space between decisions is incredibly important. It's very important to practice creating space in your brains. So when you have a thought, allow yourself a little bit of time before you think about the next thought. Really simply. So we're going to practice that now, just for a second or so.
Wow.
Just for a few minutes.
Yeah.
We're going to do a little bit of practicing being present. So I'd like you all, wherever you're sitting, to sit as much as you can with your back straight. And I'd like you to close your eyes. I'm going to have mine open for now. And I'd like you to just listen to my voice. Allow yourself to become aware of your weight on your seat. Allow yourself to be aware of the relaxation in your toes and in your feet, your ankles. Let that relaxation gently and purposefully float up your body through your legs and your knees and your hip bones. Feel yourself sink into the chair ever so slightly. Allow that relaxation to creep up your spine, vertebrae by vertebrae. All of the tension leaving your body, all of the nerve endings beautifully relaxing. Let that relaxation gently float down your arms to your fingers, so that even the tips of your fingers are completely relaxed. The tips of your fingers all the way down to the tips of your toes are beautifully relaxed. And let that relaxation creep up your neck to the bottom of your jaw, and feel all of the tension in your jaw let go and relax. Your face is now beautifully relaxed. Even your ears are relaxed. The teeth and the roots of your teeth are all beautifully relaxed. Your eyes will gently drop in your sockets. And the top of your head is all beautifully relaxed. Now for a second or two, let's bring your awareness to your thoughts. Just watch them drift in and out of your head. And notice that between each thought, just like between each breath that you take, there is a tiny little bit of space and time. And as you watch those thoughts come in and out, allow that time and space between each thought to gently expand and grow. And as that time and space grows, know that all your amazing talents and potential sits in that time and space. And allow yourself to merge with that time and space. and all of that potential. Know that with each breath you take in, you bring oxygen to the body, and with that oxygen you energize every single cell. And with each breath that you give out, you expel any toxins and you relax every single cell. So breathe in and energize, and breathe out and relax. In and energize, and out and relax. And when you're ready, come back to the room. Okay, let's move on. It's very strange doing that without checking in on you all.
Yes,
But let's move on.
Can we put your hands up, please, if you found that really, really interesting, please, because that was 3 to 4 minutes of really, really good meditation. Everybody's putting their hands up, so thank you, thank you. Again, you can put some question in as well as part of that, just to get you. But I think this was the first live meditation on Saturday from the UK to. So thank you very much indeed. Please proceed. We've got about 15 minutes to conclude.
Sure.
Shamela?
I'm gonna go race through now. I think just that we've got the material through.
Just
so
Shamela,
communicating.
We have 2 more questions from you, by the way. Yeah. Overall,
Okay.
we have 2 more questions. So let me know when you want to throw those question in.
Okay, will do.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing, once you've got your presence, once you're present, once you're whole, once you're relaxed, the next thing is all about listening. And I know there was a question about that, but I'm going to skip through it actually, Anil, because I think most of the people on the call are probably really good listeners.
Yep.
So the key thing is to start with an open heart and mind. So listen without judgment or without the need to fix. Now, this is really important because I know you're all engineers. And as engineers, you're always looking for a solution, right? And it's your job to find the solution, except when you're listening to people. When you're listening to them as leaders around what's going on now, you need to not think about fixing. You need to just listen to what they're saying. It's incredibly important to just allow them to talk and to pay attention to their body language and their tone and to really get what's going on. You'll always have time for solutions and you'll always be able to fix whatever needs fixing. But in the moment around listening to them, being really attentive to the whole of them is incredibly important. And when you do that, your heart will connect with them, your gut will connect with them, and your head will connect with them. It's really, really important. And you'll suddenly become aware of how they're feeling because you'll have this deep connection with them. And what I mean by hold that space is literally, if you imagine, I mean, you're all, again, in construction. So when you are designing a space or when you are building a space, it's the same really holding it. Just hold that space of non-judgment, of connection, and be there with them. It's very, very powerful. The key thing is that their perspective is going to be different to yours because they have a different life, they have a different story, they have different things impacting on them. So in order to fix their problem and to help them and to serve them, you really need to understand them. So that's why that listening is so important. Before we get on to the next 2 points, I just wanted to check in. Are there any questions about listening on what I've said just then?
There's no, yes, there is a question, but I want to take a question which was, let me give you the question on listening quick. Well, it's on communication. How can we communicate efficiently and stay connected, especially if we are leveraging a virtual model? So in terms of, the virtual reality, how can we communicate effectively, especially in this time now?
I think the key is to do as much of your communication is listening. So doing more calls, and doing conference calls and things like that, or even Zoom calls. Zoom tells you a lot, actually. When you're on a group call on Zoom, you can connect in with what people are feeling quite easily, because your attention is brought to what they look like, to their faces. As long as you're not interested in what's going on behind them or what books are on their shelves and things like that, if you focus on the people, you'll be able to connect with them. And as you practice connecting with them as a whole, person to person, you'll be able to get what's going on quicker, and you'll be more effective about communicating with them, because you'll know them better.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. The listening is the key to everything. Yeah. So the last point here is really important. So, and it's really interesting to be able to do this virtually. Trying to get a sense of what's going on in your organizations by listening to what is being talked about. So this is maybe something you can do. I don't know whether you guys have WhatsApp chat groups, or whether you have Facebook groups in your organization, or whether you have internal intranet type social media, so that you can get an understanding of what people are talking about. But it's really, really important. And if you're working with other leaders, you need to communicate with them so that you have a consistent approach to your key messages about your organization, particularly if you're dealing with some big issues at the moment, which we all are. But, you know, in the construction industry, I'm very aware that this is an incredibly difficult time for you. So if you need to be consistent about what's going on, listening to the mood is really, really important. The other thing to understand by doing this is that you'll understand what data you need to find out about. And data, again, in the world today, the key leaders, the good leaders, are using real live scientific data to inform their decision making. And data is so important. Understanding what's really going on, looking at your key KPIs at the moment, looking at whatever data you have to hand, that will give you an access to what communications you need to have with your staff and with your peers. Okay. So the other aspects of all of this, and we've talked about this already really, but being honest is incredibly important. Knowing what you know and what you don't know is also important. Really be honest with yourself. What do I really know about this situation, and what do I not know? And then saying, I'm really sorry, I don't know about that right now. But what I will do is I will do X, Y, and Z to go and find out about it. Pretending that you know more about something than you do is incredibly dangerous, particularly right now. So we have some examples in the world of people that think they know what they're doing, and perhaps there is a leader that suggested injecting people with household bleach as a way of killing the virus, and he thought that was a good idea. I'm not saying who, but you all know who I'm talking about. There is some incredibly dangerous things that are out there right now. And so being clear about what's real and what's not real, and being able to say what's fake, what you think is fake. So if you hear a rumor that's going around in your organization and you know it's not true, dispel that rumor straight away. It's really important that everybody has the right information right now. And then I've talked about being vulnerable and being okay with being vulnerable, being brave, and being honest about how this affects you will really gain you respect. It really will.
Okay.
Everyone respects a leader who's honest.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
Just quick one, Shamela, just quick one. And if you just go back to that previous slide you had, there's a question from a colleague coming in. The kids one, and that just ties nicely with Super Kids. Should meditation and yoga as a tool for mindfulness be taught in school? Because we've all grown up. Yeah.
It is taught in some schools. So in the UK, they use mindfulness and yoga quite a bit in a lot of schools. There's some examples of using it with children who have been, I don't know whether you have this term in Mauritius, but who have been excluded, so difficult children. So they've used it in several schools where there have been children that have had problems, and that's shifted and transformed the way that they are completely. So mindfulness is particularly useful with children, and yoga is something they do anyway. So yeah, doing yoga with babies and children is, that's the way to get started. Anil's question about why don't we do more yoga? If you have kids, start with kids. They can do it naturally, and it's funny. You have a good laugh, but it creates a bond with you, and it keeps them occupied. And thirdly, it gets them to be more in tune with their bodies, so they will be more likely able to understand their guts and hearts when they're older. So yeah, I would suggest, if we could do it everywhere, I would do it everywhere. In fact, I used to, when I was at PA consulting, it was part of the thing that I did with my clients. I used to run yoga sessions with my clients at client site. So it was something that the firm used to ask me to do. So and there was one particular big program that I was involved in that was going through a massive crisis, and it was the one thing that kept everyone sane. Every morning we'd come in early and we'd do some yoga together. Awesome. So yeah, incredibly useful, these things. So I want to go back to Anil's question earlier about mission and vision. Communicating with others around this time, we can be giving out negative messages, but this is really important to pick up on. We can still be positive. There are better times coming. We will come out of this. We really will. I mean, humans have met much worse times, and we're in a time when we have amazing medicine. We're in a time when we have amazing communication, so that we can communicate across the world right now. So the scientists right now are communicating across the world to see if they can come up with different ways of handling this. There are people who are working on this night and day. So we will have a better world. And if you create that hope in your heart and then in the heart of others, you can spark all sorts of creativity. And this is really important, because hope is something that the brain connects with creativity. So it's an amazing thing. If you have hope, you are more likely to be innovative and creative.
Yeah, and also,
that's
Shamela,
something we can all use as leaders.
And Shamela,
and all of this is scientifically proven, by the way.
Shamela,
so
sorry.
Yes, Anil.
Just quick one. If you just go back to the previous slide, I think you had a really good quote there. In terms of staying positive, doesn't mean you have to be happy all the time. It means that even on hard days, you know that there are better ones coming. I mean, this is so important, I think, because we connect positiveness with happiness.
Absolutely. And happiness is an interesting thing. You know, you can be happy and sad at the same time. That's okay. You can be happy and scared at the same time. That's okay. We're human, and humans are incredibly good at holding more than one thought in their head. So we can know that there are things that we have to do today, but we can also hope for a better future.
Excellent. Thank you.
So, you know, I mean, you guys are in construction, so you know all about, you know, planning for the worst and hoping for the best at the same time. That's what you do, right? You always have a contingency plan. You always have a risk log. You always know what the risks are, but that doesn't mean that you expect them to happen. You plan for them, you mitigate them, and you create something beautiful at the end of it with your buildings. And that's exactly what we need to do right now. So let's start focusing on creating something beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so this is really important, sharing. So a lot of leaders don't share, which is a really bad way of leading. I hesitate to use the word bad, but words are failing me at the moment. So, but sharing what you know is really, really, really important. Sharing, I mean, I've put hand sanitizer there, and maybe, you know, if you're in the UK, maybe you might want to share some loo roll with your neighbours, because we have loads of problems with buying that right now. But sharing is really, really important. So whatever you've got in terms of information that you know is good information, share it. Really, it's really important to create a collective understanding of what's going on. Because if you help people understand what's really going on, and this doesn't just mean around, you know, the medical stuff around COVID, but also around what's going on in your industry, what's going on with finance, what's going on with anything that's impacting what you guys are doing. Sharing amongst yourselves and collaborating the way that Anil is trying to do is incredibly important. And I mentioned sharing what's fake. This is also important. If you find something out that's information that's not true, share that quickly, because it's important to protect people, other people, from fake news. And, you know, right now there's been a lot of rubbish that's been circulating on social media about what you can do to stop yourself from catching the virus. And that's actually hurt people. But in a organizational and leadership context, sharing the right information and getting rid of the myths is really, really important, particularly when you come to finance, projects, important works that you're doing. So as much as you can share. And then sharing how you're helping people is great. So telling everybody what you're doing with other organizations or with your community also helps them spark how they can help each other. You know, that's the beautiful thing about sharing. When you share, you spark somebody else to share. It's a really wonderful aspect of our conscious state of being human, is that sharing produces more sharing.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last point. So when you have a learning moment, when you've learned something about yourself, or when you're working with another leader and you've worked something out, telling people about it is amazing. It's a really, really, really powerful thing to do. I'll remind you to go back to that Mark Zuckerberg video. He was describing a moment in his life where he learned something, and then he put it to a video, you know, and then he brought it to a talk, and it then becomes powerful. So sharing these learning moments helps other people learn from what you've learned. So again, really, really powerful. So I'm going to move on to the next bit, because I'm conscious of the time.
Yes,
I'm really sorry, Anil.
So Shamela, we've got 5 minutes left. We will conclude at 12
Yeah.
on the dot. So we've got about 50 minutes, but 5 minutes to conclude the presentation, and then we'll just take some question and then we just conclude. Yeah.
So very quickly, you will have time in your day to make the most of, you know, what's going on at the moment. And people have asked me over the last few weeks about what should they be doing. And I think the first thing to say is, if you don't have time, if you're really busy because you're having to look after your children and you're having to look after yourselves, or maybe elderly relatives, and do your work from home and do everything that you normally do, that's okay. You don't have to be writing a novel in this time. The key thing to do right now to make the most of this time is to be aware of what really makes you happy. Back to that Mark Zuckerberg quote, I think he said, is this the most important thing I could be doing right now?
Yeah.
Ask yourself that. Is this the most important thing I can be doing? And I love this. Make a visual plan. This is something that I've done over the years. Make a visual plan of what you want to achieve when this is over. Get some magazines, cut out a picture, make a beautiful collage of what you want to achieve. You personally, as a leader in your organization, or as a leader in the world, what do you want to achieve when this is over? Oh. Right. So just around innovation, just a quick couple of things around innovation. What we need to do right now is to embrace this uncertainty and know that we are most creative when we are in a position of risk and need. this is the time for us to really embrace that everyone is in the same position. Everybody, every single person in the world is in a difficult position right now. Everybody needs help. So if we embrace that, we can find a way to be more innovative. We, like Anil has, like he's created these webinars. This is an example of how you can be innovative. Okay. And going back to the stuff I was talking about, head, heart, and gut, if you use compassion as your tool, if you focus on what other people need right now, and the key question I would ask you is, what do your customers need right now? If you take it out to the world, what do your customers need? And then let your team go mad with suggestions and answers and ideas. Just go crazy about what ideas you could have. And I've got a picture of kids blowing bubbles there, because it is about, when you're being innovative, it has to be about fun. Let's go mad. Let's think of all the different things we could do. Then connect those ideas together, and you might end up coming up with something that the world is incredibly grateful for, because you are amazing, amazing people. The last thing I would say is collaboration. When you're in that innovative, creative mode, collaboration is the way to make yourself even braver. So if you collaborate with people that you know, I'm sure, absolutely sure, we can create a better world. Because when you collaborate, you become braver because you share the risk. And I love this picture right here of all these little super kids. If you watch a group of kids together, they always get up to mischief, because they always end up being braver. Even the really scaredy ones always end up being braver. But that's what we are as humans. Once we're together and we're focused on a goal together, we can share the risk. And in an organization, sharing risk is amazing. If you could share a risk with other organizations, and I don't know what you guys are facing right now, but I'm sure if you got together more and you looked at risk sharing, and you looked at what you could innovate around, and you looked at how you could help each other, you could come up with some amazing, amazing things. And yeah, so that's it, guys. So I just think that we can all step into an amazing future together. A world without COVID might be one that we can build something amazing in. Yeah. You know, compassion, I think, is going to be a key thing moving into the next stage of all of our lives. So with that, I'd like to say thank you.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Everybody, can you put your hands up, please, for Shamela? I've got some really interesting question coming up. I just want to take a question quickly. We've got 10 minutes left. This is coming from a friend. So Shamela, this is a very important question. By letting uncertainty to be your friend, is that more of a spiritual concept? I think it's a really good and tricky question.
Yeah.
By letting uncertainty to be your friend, etc., is that more of a spiritual concept? What's your views on that?
Yes, I think it is. I think it is. I hadn't really thought of it that way. So it's a really great way of thinking about it. Yes, it is. If you let uncertainty be your friend, it is really, really like a spiritual step, and it can help you in every way. So yeah, thank you for that question.
And the other question which I would like to, someone just said, Colonel Tom, as you mentioned, Captain Tom, always say, tomorrow will be a good day. He just mentioned that, and I'm just gonna answer all the question here. So there's one question from a friend again. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing, expressed the other that is small. So a little knowledge is very dangerous than a small amount of knowledge, which can mislead people into thinking that they are more expert than they really are. Does misleading information mean being dishonest? Please share your views.
I think the first thing is, I think it's a really, really good question. First thing is, you need to be honest with yourself. So how how much do you understand that particular piece of information that you might want to share? You know, really question it. If you're going to share, if it's a piece of information that's, you know, that's really important, and in these times, if it's about COVID-19, for example, be really sure that you've got it right before you share it. Or the other way of sharing it appropriately is to caveat it. So there are many experts right now that are sharing their, real experts, I would say, that are sharing their results from their testing of viruses and so on. And they're some caveats. And that is really important. A good leader caveats what they know. And if they have a real expert that they know, they always say, my real expert is on my left, or my real expert is on my right. And I would always say as well that the greatest leaders in the world, in world history, have worked with people who are more intelligent than them and more expert than them.
All right.
And they've been proud about it.
Thank you very much indeed, Shamela. We're just going to take last poll before we conclude. So I'm going to ask the audience to vote, please, again. So the next one is on leadership and listening. What is important to do when listening? So I'm just going to launch poll. Everybody, please, we've got 5 minutes left, so I would really like your active participation on that. What is important to do when listening? Multiple choice. Think about my next question, especially in construction. Think about my next question, listening to my thought as they speak, wait for space to insert my view, focus totally on them. So please, again, what is important? You've got 10 seconds left. What is important to do when listening? Think about my next question, which we often do in construction because we want to be ahead of others. Listen to my thought as they speak. Sometimes we do. Wait for space to insert my view, or focus totally on them. So already 75% have voted. I'm just going to end polling and share the result. So here we are, Shamela. What is important to do when listening? Think about my next question, 4%. 18% listen to my thought. Wait for space, 50%, and focus. So 75% are saying, yes, we will be focused now totally on them. So thank you for that. I'm just going to read the last one. We have the leadership style post-COVID we've talked about. And the last one is, right, this is a really good poll. That's the last poll for today. Do you think that there'll be a new style of leadership that will emerge from COVID-19? I would like Shamela's views on that, as we've got 5 minutes left to conclude. Yes or no? Do you think that there'll be a new style of leadership that will emerge from COVID-19? That could be practical, that could be theory, that could be academic, that could be from research and universities. Give you 80% of you have voted. I'll give you 10 more seconds. Do you think that there'll be a new style of leadership that will emerge from COVID-19? So we've got 80% who's voted. I'm just going to share a result. Shamela, what's your view on that in terms of 96% said a new style of leadership will need to come out? What's your views?
I really hope it will. My hopeful self says yes, and I hope everyone will remember these times and everyone will push for it, and we will think about who we're leading as our leaders of our countries, and we will support who we support in our organizations as leaders, etc. I think it's incredibly important. And if we look at history has shown us that times like this, new leadership styles do emerge. So yes, fingers crossed.
Okay.
I hope so.
All right, thank you very much indeed, everybody. So we're just going to move on to finish off the slides. We've got a few minutes left. Rise up to the challenge. Shamela, quick word on this. Someone sent me the photo, Maria Kutler, who talked about mental health, talked that, we've got a bigger shock, climate change, eating the economic crisis. COVID is a small one. What's your thought on this picture?
I think this is very true. I think this is COVID-19 is the small one that is showing us the others. I was watching the news this morning, and half of the world's labor, half of the working people in the world are going through difficulties at the moment and may lose their jobs. Half of the world's working population. Now that tells you a little bit about what's coming up economically. And we're going to all have to focus on climate change. And I think actually my personal view is that the way to come out of the economic crisis is to focus on climate change. Because as human beings, we are incredibly innovative. And if we actually put all of our efforts on focusing on climate change, we will create a new economy. Looking
that before we finish off.
No, I don't really have anything else to say than it was beautiful. Thank you, Anil. Really beautiful.
I know it touched your heart, Shamela, and it touched many of our heart as well. So just to finish off, I want to share this book with you, which I've been reading recently, Great Leaders Grow. Again, what Shamela has just touched on, you know, and I'm not going to read all of it, but please take a snap of it. And if you need more info, you will find it. I will share you. The other book and this is a book which has been read by Tony Robbins. Continuing to grow has been the key to my success. It can be the keys to yours too if you read this book. So please have a read on that one. This is the book which is with me right now. As you can see, I love this book, and the book told about over things I've learned over the years of being an entrepreneur is that if you don't have passion for your business, you're running, then the probability of not making it very high. I'm here to fuel that passion by giving you some great ideas you can depend. I've got the book. If you need it, let me know. I'll share that with you. And then finally, we are right now in a state of mental health, which is really down. So again, it's coming from Arno Schwarzenegger, which is one of the picture there, as you can see. He's just, he's not on there, but he's on the book. The mind is the limit. As long as the mind can envision the fact that you can do something, you can do it as long as you really believe 100%. So please have a look at this book. And finally, we conclude on, there's a book which I will share with you through my email. It's a free book, and the book is really doing well. You know, it's a small book, and it talks about Brace Impact, surviving and thriving in the pandemic era, which has been done by Alexandra and Dr. Amy. You know, purposely share this book to us, and it's really important book. And I'm going to just share this quote from you as well, where Andrew said, for a time such as this, these two brilliant authors have collaborated to deliver us an incredibly useful book. Alexandra and Dr. Amy are experts in the field of well-being, physical and mental strength, and I'm so thankful that they have turned their genius to the complexity we're all facing right now. The book will help us all to take a breath, get some clarity, and develop some resilience. Brilliant. And then finally, this is a must read for anyone that's not only want to survive isolation, but emerge from this unique situation, a better version of themselves, both physically and mentally. And again, which, you know, Shamela has just touched for the past 2 hours. So forthcoming CPD, which will be on Industry 4.0, we'll talk about someone experienced as an architect, and then global lockdown next Saturday as part of 9 contestants from, you know, different continents in the world. We'll share the lockdown as part of construction. So finally, take care, be safe. And Shamela, word of wisdom from you to the Mauritian committee. We have 100 right now listening to us after 2 hours. You know, final share of thought, you know, your wisdom to us in this very difficult time. We've got lockdown for almost a month. There'll be a partial lockdown after the 15th of May. But your final advice to us and share with them before we conclude.
Really simply, you are people that know how to create. That's what you do. You make things happen, you build, you create amazing solutions for people. You know how people are because you've learned how to make buildings for them to work and live in. So I would just say, trust yourselves and help us build a better world. That's what you do. And just thank you for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And wish you all well.
Okay, Shamela, just before we go, on behalf of Mauritius, on behalf of all the 100 participants here today, we would like to thank you for your time. I know it's 9 o'clock in the UK. You woke up at 6 o'clock to get everything ready. 6 o'clock in the morning from the UK to deliver a 2-hour, fully amazing presentation. That was amazing. So everybody, can you put your hands up, please, for Shamela? It means a lot for Shamela to give her time, her effort, her collaboration, and her dedication and passion to us all Mauritian here. So thank you, Shamela. We can't thank you enough to give your time back and to really enlighten us on this 2-hour presentation. So thank you, Shamela. Thank you, everybody. I will have now to conclude. We've just got questions coming in, but the questions are exactly the same. Everybody's saying thank you. So thank you, everybody. And we now conclude the presentation. So maybe a good wave, Shamela, to everybody, to say hi to everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Please put your comments on WhatsApp and your feedback on email to me. So I'd like to share to Shamela how you enjoyed it and what you've got from the CPD talk today. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you later. So I'm going to stop sharing as well. Shamela is now on the screen. So thank you, everybody, and we'll take care and be safe, take care, and use all the stuff that you've learned today from Shamela on the leadership in uncertainty. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.